Hello, and welcome back to Noita. I have the Edit Ones Always mod on, just like in the last video, and I've also enabled Gold is Forever. Hopefully I will be able to make it a little bit further this time. I've played Noita on and off, and I always wind up coming back to it. It's a game I really enjoy playing. Roguelites are some of my favorite games. Oh. Disc projectile, it says, as if it's not just a giant saw blade. I may end up killing myself with this weapon. Ooh, Kiva Skivi. I like this item. Makes me immune to fire, so long as I'm holding it. If you haven't seen this game much, and you think all there is to it is just this area that you go down through levels, boy are you in for a surprise. This game is very big, and going straight down to the end boss is not even close to half of what the game has to offer. It's kind of ridiculous. I feel like a very small subset of players even experience a lot of what this game has to offer. Of course, just going straight down is fun, and eventually you realize, oh, you can go back up if you get the right items. And of course, if you're just at the start, you can go left and there's a tree and you might be able to get over that tree, and you go to the right and there's stuff over to the right if you can actually get that far, which is a lot more rare. If I get the right items to do that, hopefully I get to show that off in this video, because there is a lot to this game. Ooh, giant disc projectile. Wow, very cool. Oh boy. You know what? I choose to not comment on that death. The air feels hot. I'm not really sure what that does. Whoa. Deciding what game to play on this channel has been a little bit of a challenge. I thought Dragon's Dogma was going to be really fun and awesome to play, but I wound up not being very satisfied with how that video turned out. And I got pretty bored by the end of it. By the end of that recording session, I was just bored, and I was playing for almost 2 hours and just got through what I believe to be the tutorial for that game, essentially. The game has a very slow start, and I wanted to keep the story intact for anyone who hasn't seen it before, or for anyone who might be interested in seeing the story as well as the gameplay. Cutscenes in games in general just really bore me. I've always been more of a gameplay focused person when I play games, not nearly as much for story. I don't think I could tell you the last story in a game that I enjoyed was. But most of the games I play are like roguelikes and roguelites, and games that have basically infinite replayability, like this one and RimWorld. Dragon's Dogma is a story-focused game, technically, but I enjoy the gameplay in that game a lot more than I enjoy the story. The story in that game doesn't really encapsulate me. I like a lot of the ideas in the story of that game. I just don't think it's just not the reason I play it. That's the best way I can really explain it for Dragon's Dogma. I didn't know I was about to release that many enemies. And by this point, all that gold would be gone because of all this acid that's appearing there, and I have to wait for the acid to clear before I get the gold nuggets. Luckily, I have the mod that makes that stay, so I can just come over here, grab that. Yes, I will make the same mistake as I made last time. My gaming and ability to play games for extended periods of time has dropped off pretty massively in the last few years. I get bored absurdly quickly with new stuff. Stuff in general, I get bored extremely quickly. So I'll buy a game and then spend 30 minutes or so downloading it, and then I'll play it for like 10 minutes and then just Alt F4. So yeah, most of the games I have on my PC are not story-based. I think the last story-based games I played was the Danganronpa series. And that's like all story and barely any gameplay. I played that game quite a while ago and just got totally absorbed into it from the get-go. The first Danganronpa game, oh, they're so good. The first Danganronpa game is just wonderful, amazing. I went into it completely blind. I didn't know what I was expecting, and I thought it was a completely different game than it actually was. Persona 5, that's another game that I enjoyed the story of. Okay, I just knocked my mic down into my lap. Persona 5 though, that's a really good game, and that's one of the few games that I like the story of over the gameplay. I started out just really enjoying the gameplay of that game, and then I got encapsulated by the atmosphere. God, the music in Persona 5 and the atmosphere is so good. The story is really good too. But I started that game off basically for the gameplay. The environment and music kind of acted like glue for me, and before I knew it, I got basically addicted. I got sucked into the story, and I just played it non-stop for days on end. And if you've ever played Persona 5 to completion, you know that's a really long game. It is just an absurdly long game that every time I thought I was near the end, I was like, okay, it is literally almost 6 a.m. This is before I had like a major full-time job, so I was able to stay up pretty late playing it, and so it'd be like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., right at 6 a.m. sometimes, and I'd be playing them, and I'm like, I have to be at the end of the story by now, right? If I just push on for an extra hour. And then it would always wind up being like, by the time I thought the game was almost done, I literally had over 25 hours of gameplay left. I think it was like the 50-hour mark that I thought, there can't be any more to this game. It has got to be ending soon. And then by the time I finished it, I was maybe at 80 or so hours. If I could use Persona 5 music in my videos, I would do that in a heartbeat. The Persona 5 soundtrack is just so good. But unfortunately, they will definitely copyright strike my video if I even thought about using Persona 5 music. I have a really good memory in general. I have kind of a photographic memory. And so replaying some games, if a game sticks with me in my memory, it makes it difficult to replay it because I can basically put myself in the time that I played it originally, so it's as if I just got done playing it, if that makes any sense. Obviously though, I don't remember every little detail of everything, but I do remember some awfully strange details. If I really think about it, I might be able to just make a perfect timeline of Persona 5 in my head. I have a question for you. Can you taste the difference between artificial sugar and real sugar? For example, a Diet Coke to a normal Coke. Because for me, they're extremely bitter and they leave an aftertaste in my mouth that lasts for a very long time. And it kind of dries out the back of my throat too. And the reason I say this is because I'm drinking this sugar-free strawberry lemonade because I have nothing else to drink right now. I don't really feel like going all the way upstairs to get some water, even though I probably should because water is always good, especially if you're talking a bunch, but I digress. I cannot stand the taste of sugar-free stuff. It tastes so much worse than real sugar to me. And I wonder if that's a common thing or if I'm just weird. So leave your answers in the comments below. 1. Can you taste the difference between real sugar and artificial sugar? And do you like the taste of artificial sweetener? To finish my thing from earlier, I was talking about Danganronpa and then I went off talking about Persona 5. Danganronpa, really good game. But the thing that I like about Danganronpa is the story. And so the gameplay elements in that one come completely secondary to me. And that was to the point that I lowered the difficulty a ton by the end of like the second or third game just so I can get through everything easier. So I could tell what was going on in the story. So if a story for a game grabs me, I pretty much become addicted. The same thing happened to me in Persona 5 as well. Around the end of the game, I lowered the difficulty a lot because I was just tired of dealing with the combat in the game. So I put it on like story mode difficulty just so I can experience the story without having to worry too much about strengthening my characters and their personas and everything like that. Which I have absolutely no shame in doing. If I know for a fact that if I put my mind to it, I can be good at a game, and that's not really why I play games. I don't play games to be good at them. I play games to have fun, and if I'm not having fun because the game is too hard, for example, or if I'm just irritated with some mechanics in the game, then instead of just dropping the game and not playing it, I lower the difficulty. Wow. There is too much lava. I mentioned it before in my RimWorld video, but I do not get a sense of accomplishment for winning in a difficult video game. I don't know why. I guess I'm just wired differently. Like if you're struggling to beat a boss in a very hard game and you're like, this is your 12th time fighting the boss, and then you're like, oh, I'm getting close, I can feel it, and then you win. You get a sense of accomplishment about that, right? I just get frustrated. There's no winding down for me in a difficult experience. Sweet, I love this little guy. But difficult video games is just suffering for me in and out. And it took me a while to realize that I just didn't have fun playing them because there's a stigma around not liking difficult games. Wherein, if you say you don't like a game because it's hard, you, of course, get the response of, like, get good. Or, like, if you're genuinely asking for help on a boss, you'll have people just flaunting their own skills, saying, well, I beat him first try, so I don't see why you're having difficulty with him. And they'll be like, oh, get good. Have you considered getting good? Have you tried getting good? The only time I get a sense of accomplishment is if I beat him first try with, like, no problem. It's the only time I really have a sense of accomplishment, to be honest. Otherwise, I guess it might just be a thing with, like, perfectionism. It's like, if I struggle against a boss, then I'm just not. The only difficult games I like are ones where have you tried getting good? What happened there? Oh, so he hit me like 6 times in a row because I was stuck in a piece of ice. This is one of the games that make me mad, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if I just Alt F4'd at some point in this series. Of course, I will try not to do that. I would hate to ruin my recording. So Noita is a game I can only play for short periods at a time before getting frustrated with it. So if there's a long period that I don't upload videos of this game, there is a chance that I have reached my threshold. I don't know, I do like difficult games to a degree. If the game is like right at the limits of what I can accomplish, then that's exhilarating. But if it's more than I can deal with, or if it's a lot less than what I can deal with in terms of difficulty, like if I'm struggling way too much and I just feel like it's hopeless, then I don't enjoy it. But if I feel like I'm just completely stomping everything, I also don't enjoy it. I don't allow myself to suffer endlessly playing games that are above my skill level anymore. I did that for a long time just because of the culture around difficult games, and I feel like the culture was essentially, you have to like this game because it's difficult. If you have a game that's like, tests my skills without completely being practically inaccessible to me because of my skill level at that game, that I can like do anything to grind, to level up, or get equipment that puts me above the challenge of that area, that is the most fun I have in games. For example, if I go into Dark Souls and I farm an enemy for a weapon that I know that I do really well with. Just anything that gives me a tactical advantage, be it gear, level, armor, anything like that. That's what I enjoy. Putting in effort and making my character overpowered, either through knowing that an item exists or through putting in the effort to grind and get my level up. That's what I enjoy. Like if I play Dark Souls on this channel, I can guarantee you what I will do right off the bat. I'll go down into New Londo Ruins and pick up the Estus Flask Enhancer thing. Geez, it's how do I forget what that's called? I get that item and then I go up a little bit, I go through the locked door with the master key, I pick up souls in that area, and then I'll go back, I'll level up using the like proud souls I got, and I'll make my way up to, of course I'll reinforce my Estus flask, and then I'll make my way up to, well, that I pretty much play it normally after that point. I just like to get those extra items right at the start before I even do anything in the game. One thing I've been trying to do is go straight to Pinwheel, but Pinwheel's actually pretty hard when you're right at the beginning of the game. It only becomes easier because normally people go to Pinwheel, I think, well after Quelaag. What? Yeah, at the beginning of this channel, you might see a lot of new series just titled like episode 1, and then you'll go to the next one and it'll be like episode 1 of a brand new series that's totally unrelated to the last one, and I'll probably do that for a little while. I don't plan on playing, say, like 5 series simultaneously. I'm pretty much just testing the waters. If I upload a video that gets, say, like 50 or 100 views or something like that, then that's pretty clear indication that I should keep doing that. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty nice. This game's trying really hard to kill me. Did you see that? In case you were wondering, the Kiva Skeevy does not make me immune to lava. If there's one saying I feel like I've learned about myself in the past few years, if there's one big thing that I feel like I've learned about myself in the past couple of years, is that I think I can learn pretty much anything if I just apply myself. And I think that applies to everyone too, of course. And I'm sure that applies to everyone as well. If you just put your mind to something, you can get good at it, you can learn it. And that's sort of what I'm going through with YouTube right now. It's a thing that I'm gonna have to get good at. And I think there's so much to YouTube that it's not gonna be an easy thing to pick up on. One thing I've noticed is that I really like learning. I like learning about stuff. I like learning about learning. I think learning skills in and of itself is a skill. And so every time you learn something new, you get better at learning new things. If you start off on doing anything and you're not good at it, then that might be a hint that it's a skill that you can get good at. Because I think anyone can get good at anything. I don't think anything is just set in stone. I don't think people are born to be better artists than anyone else, or that anyone is born better at learning. You just have to expose yourself to these things. You have to surround yourself with knowledge. You have to surround yourself with science and educational things. You have to develop an interest in this. Most of the channels I've been subscribed to on YouTube for a long time are science-focused channels. And even if I don't understand the topic to begin with, if I don't learn X or Z, or that X equals Y, if I don't learn those things, that's okay. I'm still learning how to learn, and I'm learning what's hard to learn for me, if that makes sense. And so every time I go through that moment of, I don't understand this went over my head, I feel sleepy now. Every time I go through that, I feel like I pick up something from it. I either pick up this topic was really hard, maybe I'll try to find some way to break it down easier, or find someone who explains it easier, because that's also a big thing, is being able to explain these things easily. Your ability to learn depends a lot on the teacher as well. So someone could just be bad at teaching something, and so I will tend to look for other sources. I'll look on Reddit, Explain Like I'm 5, to see if anyone explains the topic as simply as possible. And then once I get that very simple understanding, that very basic fundamental understanding, I can work off of that and steadily learn the more complicated things. You just have to start at that absolute basic point, that fundamental point, and then work your way up. I think if you do that with anything, then you can learn anything. And as you do that, you get better at doing that. You get better at figuring out, what do I need to figure out? What is it that I'm not getting around my head here? And then you can look at that. For example, quantum mechanics is one thing that absolutely goes over my head. And eventually I was like, you know what? I haven't known what this thing is for a long time, and I'm tired of not knowing what this thing is. So I'm going to find something that explains it to me, and I'm going to make a focused effort to understand this thing. I just sort of rambled a lot, but my main point here is, if you're not a scientifically minded person and you want to be, then my best advice to you is to steadily surround yourself with these scientific things. Say evolution. You want to learn about evolution. look at Mothlight Media on YouTube, watch his videos, and the simplest things in those videos will stick in the back of your mind. So like if you don't get some of the more complicated things in those videos, like I don't, and you don't remember specifics like I don't, as you watch those videos and you're exposed to some of the core concepts of evolution over and over, and some terms of evolution such as convergent evolution, that eventually you start making connections, and then you're like, okay, I know what convergent evolution is now, and I'm sure this is important to understanding other things about evolution that are important as well. So you watch one of these videos and just the concepts go over your head, and that makes you feel like you're just not good enough, or you're not smart enough to know this concept, because I spent 10, 20, 30 minutes on this video and I still don't get any of it. Then that's missing the point, and I think that's the trap that most people fall into. Just keep exposing yourself to these things and you will get the hang of it, and as you get the hang of more things, then you're practicing that skill of getting the hang of things, and then you'll get the hang of things faster and better, and eventually you'll be unstoppable. But the absolute best thing I think you can do for learning, like if you just want to learn something, my approach is more like if you want to learn about learning in general and pick up some facts and things along the way. If you want to genuinely learn a topic, then you need to put a lot into it. If you want to get to where you really know a topic inside and out, then you just gotta put in as much as you want to get out of it. If you want to learn about evolution, you gotta look at these terms, you gotta define these terms. And one thing that I have noticed that helps a lot with learning is also just teaching. I think you can learn a lot if you just try to explain something to someone. Because if your explanation is choppy or is missing information, or you have to stop and think a bunch, then you'll immediately know like what you have to think about, and you'll know that there are holes in your understanding. So I think once you can teach someone, even if it's just like a rubber duck or you're just talking to yourself, if you can explain a concept and teach someone something, then I think you know that concept. I've recorded for too long and it's gotten pretty late, so I'm gonna have to end this video here. Thank you for watching and have a good one.